Saying that Brutal Legends is inspired by metal is the understatement of the century. This game breathes metal down to its core, and oh man, does it feel so right. Brutal Legends was released in 2009 on the PS3 and Xbox 360, developed by Double Fine Productions and published by EA. The PC release didn't come until another couple of years later in 2013, and that's the version that I'm going to be talking about today. As per usual, guys, I'm going to talk about the whole game in this review, so spoiler alert.
I'll show it to you, but you can't tell anybody else where it is, okay? Deal. They keep it way in the back with the really rare stuff. Hey,
We open up with a live-action introduction starring Jack Black, who also voices this game's main protagonist, Eddie Riggs. In this record store, Jack shows us a record both mysterious and powerful, and with it, we begin our game. Eddie Riggs is a roadie for a pop band, and boy does he not enjoy it. He loves working behind the scenes to prop up the musicians and handle their equipment, but in his eyes, these are no musicians.
I can fix anything, except that.
An accident on set causes Eddie to die, and when the blood hits his belt buckle, he gets sucked into a different world. A world thick in metal-based mythology, an overabundance of leather and latex, and of course, licensed music. None of which you'll be hearing in this video because of, copyright, but trust me, it's perfect. The music choice here ranges from bands like Black Sabbath, to Rob Zombie, to Dragon Force, and more. The lack of Metallica and Iron Maiden are notable exclusions, however. Not long after waking up in this world, Eddie finds a powerful axe and his trusty guitar, and we are introduced into the first of this game's three gameplay styles, the 3D action combat. Your standard stuff is here. You got lock-on targeting, rolling around, and of course a variety of combos to unlock to devastate your opponent. In addition to your traditional melee attacks, your guitar can also bring lightning and flames down from the heavens to shock or burn your foes. After mopping up the first bunch of baddies, we meet Ophelia and build our divine steed, and thus our first glimpse at the second gameplay style, the game's heavy emphasis on vehicles. Zooming down the road with your engine blaring and rock music filling your ears the whole time, it is an experience. At this point, the game was already a 10 out of 10 for me. I could play hours and hours of this. But wait, there is more. The final of the three gameplay styles, the most important and prevalent of them all. What else could complement how hardcore and metal this game is? Of course, the most important part of this game is the real-time strategy. Wait, what? Yeah, I'm not the only one who was taken by surprise by this the first time around, right? This game is a real-time strategy game, and no, I don't just mean it has some small real-time strategy elements sprinkled in. It is literally a real-time strategy. It's the primary focus of the game. Pretty weird, but let's take a step back and get a bigger picture of what's going on here. So you get brought to this world which is basically a metal album cover brought to life, sometimes literally. Ophelia is the first friendly inhabitant you meet here, and she brings you to her friends, the siblings Lars and Lita. The three are working together in an army to overthrow the tyrannical Doviculus, voiced by Tim Curry. The main cast here is really strong, and the characters are surprisingly well written. They're also helped by an impossibly strong supporting cast, featuring Ozzy Osbourne as your merchant, and Lemmy from Motorhead acting as a healer, whose remedies are served out exclusively through the healing properties of metal. Doviculus and his cronies keep the masses enslaved, not bound by physical chains, but chains on their soul. And how else would you liberate the people from these chains than with the power of rock? And that's exactly what you do, and as you guessed, the freed become members of your ever-growing army. You can travel around an open world to do some side quests and gather collectibles. Much like Zelda Ocarina of Time, you can play songs to have different effects on this world. The guitar can be whipped out mid-combat to play some literally face-melting solos, but it also acts as a way to open up doors and revive ancient monuments. Also, you can summon your ride at any time with a tune, but this is way more badass than summoning Epona. The first half of the game leans much more into the action-adventure style of gameplay. Of course, the real-time strategy is prevalent as well, but it gets amped up super hard in the game's latter half that it's practically the only thing you're doing there. The RTS elements get eased in more and more over time. It starts out with you just having some additional warriors at your side, headbangers. You can direct them to attack whatever's in front of you, have them defend locations, make them follow you around, and of course, their most important ability of forming a mosh and damaging anyone who comes close. You acquire ranged troops shortly after, but so far, nothing too crazy. The RTS really pumps it into high gear when you have your first concert. There are nodes placed around each of these major battles that have the souls of your fans pouring out of them. It is up to you to impress them with your music skills and sell them merchandise. The more fans you have, the more troops you can acquire. Your enemy can take down your merchandise booths and steal your fans, and this is where the tug of war begins. The real-time strategy sections are locked into narrow corridors, so there isn't much concern for terrain or ambushes like there might be in your traditional RTS. You'll be pushing the front line back and forth in an attempt to get closer to your opponent's stage and take them down to finish the fight. Even if you're on board with the real-time strategy idea conceptually, some of the execution makes it really hard to enjoy these sections. The first is how easy it is to kill merchandise booths. These are the only structure you're going to build during your fights, and thus are the primary way in which you push your territory forward. What sucks is that they are extremely easy to kill, and there is no way to fortify them. Once they get killed, your enemy will take them, and you'll have to get it back over again. I felt like I was constantly fighting over the same node, and it would go back and forth constantly. Killing the booth isn't enough to reclaim it though. You must also play a song in order to win over the fans, which can't be done when there are enemies around. Okay, fair enough, but what sucks is that your enemies aren't constricted by those same rules, so they can play the song and claim it while you are standing right there, but the opposite does not hold true. It feels so cheap, and means that your opponent will take over turf way more easily than you can. I wish that taking booths was a permanent, or at least slightly more semi-permanent solution than it currently is. Another huge gripe is how your troops respawn. The game has a maximum unit count of 40, which is usually even lower when you have large vehicle-based troops. These troops are constantly going to die, and when you purchase new ones, they spawn all the way back at your stage. Might not sound like a huge deal, but you can only command troops that you are close to. Let me give you an example of why this sucks so much, and let me tell you, this is a very frequent occurrence. I'm in the middle of making my final push against the enemy stage. All my troops are attacking it. Some of them die, and I give the order to have new ones spawned. They spawn all the way back at my stage, and I can't command them to come help unless I go back to them and then have them go forward and then come back to the stage myself. This travel time is alleviated by the fact that you're given wings in the RTS sections about halfway through the game, but regardless of how much faster it is, you're still going to have time spent leaving your attacking troops alone, going back to base, clicking right on the D-pad, then flying back, and by then your attacking troops are probably already dead, so you're going to have to repeat the cycle all over again. This scenario happened multiple times in every single fight, and it's extremely frustrating, especially because it would be such an easy fix. The obvious fix being that you should just be able to send commands no matter how far away your troops are. But if that would overcomplicate things, at the very least, have your troops spawn at the closest base you control, rather than all the way back at your stage. There are moments of brilliance in this RTS section though. At the very least, I love how they squeeze every bit of flavor out of the metal theme and use it to fuel the ideas here. Your headbangers literally banging their heads on enemy structures, you having the ability to get up into the rafters and shine the spotlight at enemies. A lot of what's going on here is really thoughtful. What defines these sections isn't super rigid. The three styles blend together quite a lot. During the RTS sections, you can get on the ground and beat the bad guys to a pulp. During the vehicle sections, you can hop out of your car and command your troops, and so on. Unless you are in, of course, one of the game's more scripted missions. The story is mostly good, but much like the gameplay, I thought it was much stronger in the first half. Eddie falls in love with Ophelia, which complicates his relationship with Lita, who has suspicions on Ophelia's allegiance. Lars, being the leader, keeps things cool between everyone. But halfway through the game, they make an attack on one of Lord Diviculus's bases. There, Lars meets an untimely end and the group falls apart. Ophelia runs away and betrays you, and of course you have to win her back. The problem, as the story goes on from there, is that the game integrates its mythology way too heavily into the plot. I liked it when it was just part of the presentation, but if you don't keep up on exactly who Socoria, Armageddon, and the Emperor are, and which part of time they're currently in, then you might get a little overwhelmed. Yeah, time travel. Apparently this world you're in isn't a different world after all. rather just a different place in time. Honestly, I don't even remember if it's far past or far future, but I think the most disappointing part of the story is the explanation of Eddie Riggs' lineage. It is later revealed that he is the son of a powerful demon queen and a heroic time-traveling hero. I think it would have been much cooler if it was just Eddie Riggs the roadie, as opposed to Eddie Riggs, son of the demon. Family tree twist aside, I still enjoyed my time with the story. Of course, you eventually kill Daviculus in a pretty epic final battle, mind you, and win Ophelia back. The world is saved by Rock, and just like the good roadie he is, Eddie is not honored with a statue in the game's final celebration. He did his job operating behind the scenes, making someone else look good. It's an extremely fitting and cool ending, and I really, really enjoyed it. What's surprising to me is how short the game was. It was a relatively tight 7 hours for me. Honestly, I was satisfied with that length. I wouldn't have minded a bit shorter if some of the RTS clunkiness was smoothed out. Obviously, your mileage may vary. I would have likely spent more time in the game's world if the side quests were worth my time. They're not, and they're not worth yours either. They're basically simplified versions of quests you're going to be doing in the main story, except they don't have any significance to the plot or characters, and also aren't synced to the epic licensed soundtrack like the main game is. Seriously, this game is all about the set pieces. Escaping from General Lionwhite's fortress to the theme of Through the Fire and the Flames is just absolutely iconic. If there's one thing I like about the game's RTS style, it's that at least it gives the game a focus on large-scale battles it likely wouldn't have otherwise had. They almost feel epic, even though most of the time I wished I was a single troop partaking in the battle, rather than the commander. Of course you could get some more hours out of the game's online component. Good luck trying to find a match against random players. Technically the servers are still up, but I couldn't even get a custom lobby working to play with a friend. To be honest, it's an entire game mode focused on my least favorite gameplay type, so I'm not sure I'm missing out on too much. Brutal Legends is one of the most interesting games I've played recently. Its world is dripping in fantastic presentation and style, even if some of the gameplay is a little clunky. It's sad that the game is worth playing despite its RTS mechanics, and not because of them.
You sure you're ready for this? Because what I hold in my hand is not just gonna blow your mind. It's gonna blow your soul. Go ahead. Open it. If you dare.